Hi, I'm Shamia Jones,
I'm Jess McNeil.
and today we're going to be talking to you about teen moms and the culture.
And more about the challenges, the benefits, and pretty much life as a teen trying to raise a child, sometimes on your own, sometimes with a little bit of help. So, Shamia, why don't you give us an idea of some statistics about these young ladies?
Okay, sure. Um, One of the first and kind of most important is in the U.S., over 500,000 adolescents give birth each year.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, that's a large number. Um, it's also important to know that nearly 60% of teens who become mothers were living in poverty at the time of birth.
Wow, that seems pretty important as a fact in there.
Yeah, as well as one fourth of adolescent mothers will have a second child within 24 months of the first.
When I read that, I was pretty surprised.
Yeah.
So we'll talk some more about that. We'll talk some more about that.
Mhm.
I'll continue on. Teen mothers are more likely to not finish high school or college, perhaps due to the responsibilities that come with it.
Exactly.
And also, daughters born to teen mothers are more likely to become mothers themselves. So perhaps maybe that's from
Looking at their mom saying, I mean, if she did it, I can do it, or something like that.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure, that's a big part of it. Now, here's another one that I thought was pretty fascinating, is that more than 9 in 10 teens who give birth keep their babies, as opposed to going for adoption.
Yeah, I looked into that and they were saying, young teen moms, it's important for them to learn more about adoption and the benefits of adoption and, how it can be beneficial to them and the family
Sure.
that adopts a baby.
Sure.
And they were talking about how adoption agencies have to get out there and spread the word. So
That's pretty big. That's a pretty big responsibility to keep on
yeah.
as a kid. So making a choice as to keep the child or
Mhm.
give it up for adoption.
Exactly. There's plenty more. Maybe we'll get into some of those a little bit later. But I also wanted to talk about some characteristics.
Okay.
So that means, what does it look like? What
Okay.
does a teen mom generally look like? And one of those aspects is low socioeconomic status.
Okay.
So they're living in poverty or, very, very, very low. Sometimes they may be reaching middle
Sure.
socioeconomic status.
Right.
But
It could be anybody, but what it seems like is it's mostly lower.
It's mostly low.
Okay. Just
yeah.
lower resources. More.
Exactly.
Okay.
They usually have little to no parental guidance, and this may mean, if you look at socioeconomic status, that their parents are working, they can't give them the time they need,
Sure.
and they haven't educated them in sexual behaviors and what they should be looking for and not looking for out in the environment and
Okay.
things like that.
That makes sense.
Another one that's very prominent in this teen mom culture is the lack
Sure.
of sexual education.
Okay.
So that means at school, at home, they're just not getting the proper information they
Right.
need to make decisions that would be best for them.
Sure.
No one's to say whether it's good or bad, but just the decision that would be best for them to live the life they would like.
Sure.
Another, which is very closely related to sexual education, is the lack of accessibility to contraceptives or condoms.
Sure.
And I think they're changing the laws now about the certain age that young girls can go and get contraceptives and things like that. But I think as a nation, we consider it too taboo,
Right.
for them to talk about it and to, want to engage in it, and so we don't make it readily available for those who are suffering from the consequences the
Sure.
most.
I remember seeing that in some literature too, that other countries are a bit more open to talking about sex education
Exactly.
and have more access to
These-
contraceptives and condoms.
And it leads to lower birth rates for teenagers. Exactly.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
It's a positive.
Well, some more characteristics are for these young ladies is that oftentimes, or what leads to that is involvement in risky behavior such as drugs and alcohol, which limits your perception or your inhibitions as to what's going on. You don't realize perhaps what's going on.
Exactly.
Which is unfortunate. And also, these young ladies, perhaps their pubertal timing is earlier, which means that they are obviously able to get pregnant perhaps earlier than girls their age. And
as well as they may be looked at by younger men as having more to offer.
Right, they've grown. They look more like women than girls their age, so they're more.
But still mentally, it's the same.
Still a girl. Still a girl.
Exactly.
And perhaps peer influences, because if their girlfriends are perhaps engaging in sexual behavior, then perhaps they'll feel the pressure to do that as well, or by the young man.
Exactly. If he's being curious, you know, usually it's out of curiosity, and the consequences aren't even anywhere.
Right. It's not in the moment at the time.
Exactly. And they have to, I'll say, suffer the consequences for now if they're going to consider it that. It may be a blessing to some.
It depends. It's not an either or. We're just discussing perhaps the facts behind it. Now, also, these young ladies happen to have, we read in our literature that there's history of abuse, maybe physical or sexual, so that oftentimes these girls will go seek out comfort in some way, and sometimes that does lead to pregnancy.
Exactly.
Now we've given some numbers, we put some facts out there. Let's give these girls a face.
Okay.
Put some humanization in there.
Yes. Exactly.
So why don't we talk about life as a teen mom?
Okay.
So we're going to go over some quotes that we have on the screen for you guys. And several of the girls that we read about said that life as a teen mom is an around-the-clock activity to care for a child, which is understandable. Another young lady said, I lost all my friends after I had a baby, which I can imagine would be pretty hard. And also, you just can't pick up and go. You have responsibilities. You can't just say, oh, sure, I'll meet you there. It's not possible anymore. And your friends know that you don't have the time or money or for friends or going out. And lastly, which we wanted to give it a positive spin on this subject, was my friend was pregnant with me. It brought us closer together.
Yeah.
So at least it showed that there is a positive side to that.
There can be a closer bond between young girls who are experiencing the same thing.
Now, we also have a video clip that shows an example of life as a teen mom. It is from NTV's Teen Mom, the show, and we thought it'd be a perfect example of a way to give these girls a face. So why don't we watch that clip really quick?
You watch them become moms on 16 and pregnant before they even finished high school. But giving birth was only the beginning.
Oh my God, Sophia, you cannot keep doing that.
This winter, MTV takes you back inside the lives of Macy.
This is my favorite. I love it. I think Brian would like it. I don't care.
Amber.
I don't feel like a teenager no more, especially having this baby.
Caitlin.
What's the symbolism with the tattoos?
For our daughter, who gave her up for adoption.
And Farah.
Okay, so by looking at me, would you have thought that I've had a kid?
No.
Good.
You're gorgeous.
Can you still live like a teenager once you've become a mom?
I know, I went out too. I'm in here all the time too.
You feel stressed out right now?
You're like 97% the reason why I'm stressed.
I'm very concerned about your anxiety and depression.
You don't need to act like a teenager anymore. I am a mom. I am a teenager too.
You can walk in the door and not even say hello to him.
I'm done talking about it.
What will they sacrifice?
So you think you're gonna move out?
To make the best choices for their babies.
I know I'm gonna move out.
Now, Caitlin, you have not had intercourse in the past since you had your period?
What would you do if we got pregnant right now?
I don't know.
You got a tattoo of your kid you don't even have.
I need to get out of here.
I just want you to be there for me. One day, Bentley's gonna be calling somebody else daddy and Ryan's gonna be pissed off.
You don't talk to my dad like that, you hear me?
I'm just glad I got you.
I love you.
I love you too.
MTV presents a documentary series about becoming a mom
Glad you're home, Caitlin.
She looks like me in these ones, I think.
when you're still a kid yourself. Teen Mom.
Bentley, I just cleaned your butt. Oh my God, you're nasty.
terrible.
Premieres Tuesday, December 8th at 10 on MTV.
So, Shamia, what'd you think?
Well, first, I want to start off and kind of give a disclaimer by saying we know that MTV may put a little drama extra on top of their shows and things like that. We're well aware of that. But the video, we wanted to show a glimpse of the different lives that some of these teens lead and the emotion behind it, the story, you know, how are they continuing life with a child, how they feel as a teen mom, maybe what they feel like they're losing or what they're gaining.
Sure.
And so we feel like it was a dramatic, but it was necessary to kind of show that clip.
Because you can hear a bunch of numbers and you can hear all these characteristics, but until you probably see it, or if you've lived it yourself, there's no way to explain what it looks like. So I thought it was a great way to do that.
Exactly. And I feel that it's important that they've put that show on the air.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's getting too much positive publicity, but they say that it has an effect on the nation's young teens, you know,
in terms of education and awareness.
And either not wanting to go that route or saying maybe that's what I want to do.
Sure.
You know,
and that's understandable. So, what about some challenges that these girls face?
Definitely from the video, you can see that without even them speaking about them straightforward, that there are challenges.
Sure.
And some of the most important ones that we found were the loss of childhood.
Yeah.
So a teen mom has to rapidly mature.
Right.
You know, she's become responsible for life.
Sure.
And she has to give this child everything it needs, and she basically can't give for herself, you know, what she used to be able to, or ask for things that, you know, she used to be able to. Financial hardships, that's one of the most important ones. Young teens usually don't have a job. Maybe the father does, or if he doesn't, someone is going to have to financially be able to provide for this child. So either she or he may have to go get a job, or the parents are going to be taking care of them, you know. And that's just one of those things. They won't be able to possibly have the fantasy life that they wanted to give that child, you know. Another very important one is loss of friendship and other significant relationships.
That's a big one, I think.
Yeah, we've definitely heard from some of this research that your friends just disappear.
Yeah.
You know, they can't understand the lifestyle that you're living. They don't, you know, it's just, they are still living the teenage life that you were living before, and they don't want to bear the burden, if that's what you want to call it, that you are.
They moved one way and they're staying another.
Sure. They don't want to sit there with you every day with the baby and things like that.
Yeah. Their interests have changed.
Yeah. Sure. Another one would be it's difficult to balance school and responsibilities. That's what we talked about earlier. Some usually drop out of high school or college because there's daycare, there's the finances, and they just can't or don't know how to juggle all of that at that time in their life. A lot of teens do usually, you know, go back to school, get their GED.
Right. They make it somehow.
Yeah, somewhere down the line. Sure. But, you know, it takes some time.
Yeah, of course.
One of the most important that we're going to really dive into later on is how it affects their stress level, and they become very depressed. Sure. There's a high rate of depression in these young teen moms.
We even saw that in the clip for a second.
Exactly.
She high stress and anxiety.
And had to go to see someone about that.
Yeah. So
we're definitely going to talk about that a little bit more later.
Absolutely.
And also the risk of rapid subsequent births. So like we said before, we read in an article that many young teens have a second child within the first 2 years of the first. And it's really just, they can't get out of that risky behavior.
Right.
It's kind of like they have a child, they're however they may feel about their life not being how they want it to be. I mean, what's the problem with having another one?
Right.
I mean, it's not that, it's that that's their decision to go ahead and do it, but it happens for
Sure.
a great percentage of them.
Right, and maybe because of because of depression, maybe
Yeah.
they want another child
The-
for whatever reason.
Yeah, possibly to love them the way the first one has
Yeah.
been, you know.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But good thing is, there are some benefits to all of this.
Yeah.
Life as a teen mom can be good in the sense that you have this new independence. You know, you've gotten out there, you learned life, you figured out the pros and cons of all of this. You just learned to balance, and basically, you're an adult in a little, you know, in a young lady's body. So you have this independence. You're doing things, you're taking care of the child, and basically, in essence, you become more mature. Along with independence comes maturity. You have to be able to take care of both yourself and especially your child. And then there's somewhere you have to balance out friendships and family. So these girls really gain a huge maturity level. Now also, because oftentimes, like you were saying before, they lose a lot of friends, but also these girls, as we have read in literature, maintain true friendships. They see who's actually the friend. As one girl was quoted as saying, she and her friend were pregnant together, so they grew closer. And so they find ways to bond with people in perhaps a new way.
And family members that are there for them.
Right. Sometimes they aren't supported by family, but thankfully sometimes some family does stick by them. And I think that is important to show them the true value of self and love, which is another characteristic they tend to learn, is that they see who they are, they learn their true values, and they learn the value of love because they have this child that loves them unconditionally. Right. The child doesn't know. The mother doesn't, she doesn't have money, or maybe that she's only 15. All the child knows is that she's their mommy, you know, and so that really shows something. And as the last point, there's hope for a better future. Several of these girls say that they want to give their child a life that they never had. Life for them is tough, and they want their child to perhaps have a better life than they do.
Exactly.
And I think that's huge. That's really huge. So, in terms of perceptions of teen moms, both public and private, what can you tell me about that?
Well, I think this is one of the most important, especially when it comes to teen moms, is the stigma. The stigma that is put on them by the public. We have to start to realize that that's really not going to help.
Right.
You know, and so some of the public views that stick out the most are, they call them irresponsible, you know.
Sure.
But we have to think about where did it start? Did they learn all the responsibilities they were supposed to before, you know, this occurred? You know, are they just participating in risky behavior because they want to?
Right.
Or are they not getting something at home?
Did they learn that somewhere?
Exactly.
Nature versus nurture.
Exactly. And so they also call them unprepared. Well,
Right.
as a young teen, you would be unprepared.
Of course.
You know, it was something that most likely wasn't pre-thought of, you
Right.
know. You weren't ready for it, and you don't know how to handle it.
It just happened.
Yeah, and
Sure.
so there has to be someone there that can help you understand. And they also call them wild and irrational. But, I mean, you have to remember, when you were a teenager, what type of life did you like to lead?
You wanted to have fun and be crazy, sure.
And so they just become so judgmental, and it's all negative, and we have to turn it around to find ways to help them feel better about themselves.
Right. They're already struggling with depression, anxiety, if they obviously took that on. Yeah.
And through our literature, we kind of had to look at the life of a teen and how they saw it.
Right.
For them, it's not always negative. They feel better prepared for life.
Yeah.
You know, it started earlier, but it gets thrown at them, and
Right.
they have to take the reins,
Sure.
and they have to take control of their life and learn what it's like to be responsible.
Shows a lot of strength, I think.
Exactly. They grow up, you know, and also some of them have found themselves to be better mothers than some adults or some of their own parents, you know. They say, well, my mother didn't, you know, treat me like this or didn't treat me like that, and I want to do that for my child. And maybe those people who are being negative, they're saying, I'm going to show you that I can do this, and I can tackle this, and I can do good for myself, I can do good for my child. And it becomes one of those, you know, I'm going to make it happen. So
shows that as a culture, teen moms go through, kind of run the gambit on a lot of things. They're strong, they're also scared, they're also depressed, but they're also happy and excited. So it seems like they have quite the road ahead of them, but they make it somehow. Now, I think something that we definitely want to close with is awareness that we have touched on briefly about the need that some teen mothers actually decide to share their stories with schoolmates. They'll have programs where these girls go up and say, hey, this is what happened, you know, this is what happens if you don't practice safe sex, you may get pregnant, so these are the consequences. I want you to be aware of them. And also awareness entails maybe better accessibility to contraceptives and condoms, like we were talking about earlier, because having this accessibility may make it, as literature says, less taboo to talk about it, and perhaps more awareness, so these kids won't be scared to ask questions, you know?
And hopefully that type of awareness with the teen mothers coming out will help parents and adults to start opening up to their children, knowing that it's really never too early to start talking about it. Young children get curious, and and it's important to let them know the truth. And so that kind of leads into the awareness of sexual education at an earlier age. You got to start talking about it, be open, so that they're not scared to come to you. You know, I'm sure many people have learned that when young teenagers and even younger kids talk to their parents, they listen. They listen to their parents, you know. So you can't be scared to talk to them about it, to have their school talk to them about it, you know. It actually may be a safer gamble. A safer gamble than to just let them go, I guess, unaware, we'll say.
To a less trusted source.
Exactly. Or learn the hard way. And basically overall awareness of consequences of caring for children. So to learn the difficulties.
The finances behind it.
And definitely there are some benefits. We all know that.
We discussed that earlier.
But just to learn what it is like to be caring for a child. You know, once the child is there, they're there for life.
So it's kind of a better preparedness for what's going to happen. Absolutely. And there's actually, there are PSAs that are out right now talking about these young ladies that are giving their experience, such as a celebrity that we all know.
Bristol Palin, we have a PSA from her about teens being aware of what it's like to become a teen mom, and we wanted to show you that clip right.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
Out.
You're not going anywhere. You've got diapers to change, bottles to fill, and I've got a nasty rash on my butt.
I haven't seen my friends in weeks.
Well, I've had diarrhea for weeks, so get over here and wipe my tushy.
And you thought your parents were controlling? Don't let a teenage pregnancy take away your freedom. Pause before you play.
Well, I think that was a pretty powerful message.
Yes.
It shows that, you know, here's what happens. This is, you know, as we talked about, these are the challenges that you may be facing. So I think what she was trying to show was be aware of what life as a teen mom could be like.
Exactly. She said pause before you play. So it's just an awareness of what can happen
Right.
When you play.
Right.
You know,
Pause could be abstinence, or it could be safe sex.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. So, with that said, we basically wanted to just talk about, or we will later talk about how a counselor can work with teen moms.
The relevance of counseling with all of this.
Exactly. Sure. So we're kind of going to take it back to the class and discuss those.
Sounds good. Well, let's go to the class.